writers, you're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. I'm your host, Stephanie McGrath, and the Publisher Operations Specialist at Kobo Writing Life.
I'm Laura Granger, one of Kobo Writing Life's author engagement specialists.
This episode, we talked to David Mark Brown, who's both a writer and the co-founder of Fiction Vortex and Storyshop University. So if you don't know what Fiction Vortex is, it's a platform that publishes stories in individual storyverses. So you can think of books that are set in the Marvel universe or the Star Wars universes. And storyverses create continual episodic narrative content from shared story worlds.
David talked to us about his publishing career, which led him to create Fiction Vortex. He provided tips on writing in a collaborative environment and talked to us about his new book on pirate publishing and what exactly pirate publishing is.
So if you're interested, please keep listening. Thank you, David, for joining us today on the podcast. Not only is it your birthday, so happy birthday, but yeah, thanks for joining us. Just before we get into it, I'd just like to know a little bit more about your publishing career and how you got your start writing.
Yeah, well, super glad to be here. This is so much fun. So my author career and how I got started writing. Well, I am one of those nerdy little kids that did quite a bit of writing growing up. I think my first smash hit was in fourth grade. Was a Ghostbusters knockoff. So that's how old I am. The original Ghostbusters, where everybody had to turn in their vote as to which story was their favorite. And I got every single vote in the classroom with my Ghostbusters story. That was a monumental event for me.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just fan fiction right there before people even knew it was a thing. But fast forward to my adult life, my previous field of work, I was fortunate enough to have a sabbatical. I took that sabbatical 9 months and applied it to writing to sort of see if I had the chops, to kind of write several hours a day, day in, day out, and loved the process. So that was, 11 years ago. I sort of got in. I'm one of those people that missed all of the early rush loopholes in this sort of Wild West digital publishing process, by a few months. So, the Amazon free ranking that'll, where you could promote your book on free for a little bit and get, thousands of downloads. And then those counted the same as sales that actually cost money, would move you up the rankings. I was doing okay with that, but never, and then they took it away. And then, right on the heels of doing, when you could tag stuff, I started doing, things started going well there, and then it got removed. So my writing career was a series of sort of blundering into some of these early digital frontier things, just a few months too late to really make them sustainable for me. So I would rise, kind of up to where I was almost making a livable wage as an author, and then back down to not doing it, and then back up and back down. So somewhere along that path, I decided a couple of things. One, I would keep writing because everyone says, just write more books. And number two, I didn't really like where digital publishing seemed to be going. I didn't like the direction, and I didn't like the sustainability of the options I had available to me. This is back 2011, 2012. So while I kept writing, I kept playing around with the idea of building my own platform, building my own company, kind of trying to figure out. My degree was in elementary education. I worked on university campuses for 13 years after that. And so I kept being in these places where I was seeing middle school kids drop out as readers. By the time they reach high school, there's studies showing that just a tremendous amount of kids are dropping out during that phase when they don't transition from picture books to chapter books. And being on college campus, during the Facebook rise, I was working with college students when Facebook came out, the whole mobile smartphone revolution. I was one of the first resistant curmudgeons to be forced to get a smartphone because I worked with college students, and they're texting me 5 minutes after I'm supposed to be meeting with them to tell me that they're not going to meet with me. this was just like a weird new world for me. Like, wait, how am I supposed to know right now that you're canceling? They're like, well, don't you have a phone? I'm like, well, I have a phone, but it's at home. I'm on the wall. Like, so had to yield to like, an iPhone 2 or whatever it was back in the day. So yeah, I mean, just looking around at the landscape, I guess I was one of those authors that falls into that. To steal from one of your recent podcasts, I was listening to the episode with Michael Anderle. And he discussed, there's those people that fall right in the middle sometimes as far as publisher and writer. And so I found myself in that middle space where it's like, I love writing, but I'm really disturbed with my options for publishing, especially when it comes to seeing increasingly, numbers of young people that aren't reading anymore, because their reading options didn't seem relevant with their lifestyle. They couldn't stream the content the way that they wanted to. They weren't keeping up. Social media was exploding. Streaming audio was exploding. Soon streaming video would be exploding. Mobile apps and mobile gaming were about to explode. And all these things just seemed to me like ebooks just weren't going to be enough. Like on their own, reading was in danger. So that was sort of what led into the creation of Fiction Vortex. How can we build a publisher and a platform that keeps in mind technology that's available and changing lifestyles and how consumers want story? It ties in a lot with Michael Anderle's stuff and with Sean and Johnny, Sean Plant, Johnny B. Truant, and David Wright with Sterling and Stone. I first connected with Sean Platt when they were doing Yesterday's Gone, when him and David Wright were doing Yesterday's Gone years ago. I don't know if that was 10 years ago. Because I was doing similar kind of serial content, and they were the only other people I could find that was doing stuff like that, because it just seemed more relevant. Like people could read these quick episodic stories written like television. It just made sense to me. So through some of those early connections and kind of seeing what people were doing, we set about to kind of try to build something for authors to make the transition with readers.
So what exactly is Fiction Vortex for people who are unfamiliar?
Fiction Vortex is the publishing side right now, and also are running Storyshop as our author software platform. And so Fiction Vortex, we have 35 or so authors signed with us, really on kind of an experimental basis of like, okay, we're going to sign up these authors, we're going to write in collaborative worlds. So a lot like Catherian Gambit, Anderle's Catherian Gambit was an example that really emboldened us, because we were already doing this, and then Catherian Gambit took off and we were like, okay, this is workable. Like this is something that's happening. And so we brought on authors, we pulled them together, and I think we've got 7 or 8 different shared universes rolling in the background, and we're just we've been experimenting with what's the best type of platform to build to enable these collaborative works of intellectual property to happen. And so Fiction Vortex is handling the contracts and the publishing side. We are putting books out as novels and ebooks and things like that for the midterm before we get to our ultimate goal, where we sort of are able to combine the Storyshop collaborative writing software and generate an entire platform that allows the authors to connect these collaborative story worlds to connect directly with readers in a way that they want it. I mean, that's a piece that's still missing. There's Anderle and LMBPN and, the people that are doing this are still having to figure out a way to function within the current system. We're pushing content out through, in book form, even if it's being written super fast. It's like you have to finish up a book so you can hit the reader with the next book. But if you could hit the reader with the next episode, well, now you're you're publishing content on a daily basis instead of a monthly basis. So, or even like LMVPN they do on a weekly basis. They're accelerated using teams of authors so that they can keep the content coming for readers at a pace so that it's like on-demand streaming, like an entire season of shows comes out and you can just binge show after show after show. So it's trying to reach that level and bring the technology up to that level so that we're not still kind of stuck with this in-between process of we've got content now that's being created in this way, but the systems haven't really caught up with us yet.
So I'm just curious, since you have writers writing in the same universe, who creates the universe? Is it one author, or is it the group of authors that's writing in that universe creating it all together?
Yeah, we've done it both ways. We've done multiple ways, and this has been part of our experimentation of just, we've had some worlds where we just have an author that's come in and said, I have this world, it's too big for me. I want to open it up to other people. And so they come in as sort of the administrator of the world, and we've helped them locate and recruit collaborators that come in. And contractually, they're collaborators. The world is owned by the person that created it, and now they're participating. We've also, our very first world was one that me and my writing group cooked up, and this was sort of, some of the origins of all of this several years ago. And so the five of us were all our separate things, but then it just takes someone else, like where you're at, what the characters are, like, they have to read everybody's work so they can give legitimate feedback. So we just, why aren't we like, let's just write something together, let's all come together, create a shared world. And so we started doing that. And then eventually we're like, well, we're going to have to figure out a way to commercial, to mix out of this. And so for that world is all of us owning it at the same time. So we've expanded with all of it.
So how do you find the authors to write in these universes, and how many authors are currently writing and publishing with you?
So a very early iteration of Fiction Vortex was a online e-zine. And so we had already published 100 or so authors, I think, and had, a few hundred others that had submitted with us that we hadn't accepted for the e-zine. And so there was an early pool of people that we knew, people that we'd connected with, friends that we had. And so that's sort of where we drew from the beginning. And then a couple of years ago, I connected intentionally again with Sean and Johnny down in Austin. And this was, I think at one point in Anderley's interview, he had mentioned a conference that he had gone to back to back and while he was working on early on, and it was the Smarter Artist Summit down there with Sean and Johnny in Austin. And so I went down with them, and they had been developing Storyshop as writing software. We're getting to the point to where they were realizing they didn't want to function as a software company. And so we worked a deal with them to take over Storyshop and bring that into what we were doing here at Fiction Vortex. And so that software came along with authors that were subscribed, authors that were using Storyshop already. And then we've been, growing out the user base of people using that software as well. So that's now our current email list are sort of our friends and buddies and authors of the past. And then, users of Storyshop from more recent that we've kind of pulled together.
Where are users reading this content right now?
We developed a beta version of a reader, and it's still out there. It's in the app stores. It's in the Google Play and the Apple App Store under the name of Fictionite. So you can find it and you can play around with it if you want. I think we only have like 50 or 60 people on there still reading anything. And again, this was essentially experimental process of, can we do this? Can we build this? Will people read it? How will they interact with it? And so it was over a year and a half ago that we were gathering a lot of data back from the reader and like, how does this work? How are people engaging with it? Can we push the content to it on a regular basis? But as far as how most people are reading our content now, it's the same as anywhere else. We use Publish Drive to aggregate. We were using Lulu and Ingram Spark for, pushing out print. And, we're finishing anywhere from 1 to 5 books a month at this point, just from that pool of 30, 35 authors that have been kind of creating. Really, it's designed to be episodic content. So we pool an entire season worth of episodes and go back through them and edit them and finish them and then create a finished novel and ebook out of them.
From the writer perspective, I was just wondering if you have any tips for writing in a specific universe, because I feel like it might be challenging when you have working with different people to make sure it fits the same, or like it makes sense that it's in the same universe.
And again, there's so many different ways of doing this. We found that for some, it's a very close collaborative process. I mean, we have a Storyverse that is essentially one series with multiple people working on that same series. And so they work together very closely, using our software and using additional software, Slack and things to communicate back and forth, all the way to when we have one Storyverse that all takes place in this fictional city in Oregon, Ash Falls. It's a paranormal, urban fantasy. Even though they're each writing their own series, they all happen in the same city. And so there's, a lot of collaboration and back and forth with them. They've, built a map. They know kind of where the mall is and where all the shops are and where the bars are and, where all the vampires hang out and the blood banks are and, where the werewolves are running the show. And that level of collaboration has been fun for them to kind of push into. And this is part of what Storyshop is for. We have our world bar where, you can sort your countless numbers of characters and events and technologies and, factions and, the family names for different, vampire families and the werewolf clans and, all this type of stuff is sorted card by card in the world bar. So it kind of helps that collaborative process of whenever somebody adds something to it, it's available for everyone. I guess figure out where you're comfortable as far as how much you like to collaborate and how much you don't. Figure out what your strengths are and find other people that help fit into that. Whether you are a strong, beats writer or you're a strong finisher, find someone that, maybe you want to do it that way to where somebody else does the outlining and you finish. Or so, yeah, I think the fun of it, maybe you're not super great at world building or you don't love it, but you love plot development or you love character development. Finding those people that can kind of come in and fill in the pieces of the things that you don't feel like you're the best at or that you don't love is a great way to benefit from kind of the synergy that can come from working with a team. And, you can be local to each other, you can be remote. I think with technologies like Zoom and like what we're doing here, it's feasible to work across the world as well.
So you mentioned the software. Is that the Storyshop University or is the software something completely different?
Yeah, Storyshop is the software.
Okay. So you're currently writing a book on pirate publishing and the pirate author code. So can you just explain a little bit about the origins of this code and what exactly it is?
Yeah, so it actually just went live today on my birthday.
Woohoo!
So
congrats.
Pirate publishing is now available. I mean, whenever people are listening to this, you can jump out there. I still have to run over and get it loaded into my Kobo account, so I'll do that later this afternoon.
Yes.
So right now it's only live through Ingram, the print version. But yeah, pirate publishing, this is something that has been building for years. This, again, going back to like what I saw around me unfolding, 10 years ago. And then, with the arrival of the sort of all-you-can-read kind of buffet-style reading programs, which I want to differentiate from more niche-style subscription services. I think, a niche subscription service can be excellent. And I think there are smaller brands and labels out there that have done great with subscription services. But I've never been a fan of this sort of like gym kind of club concept of in January 1st, we want to sell tons of gym memberships at this discounted price with the hope that most of you don't ever come back. Because if you actually do work out, our gym is going to be too crowded. It's going to be bad for us. But we know that a lot of you will want to work out, but you just won't follow through. So it's the same kind of concept with reading, which to me just seems really bad. Like, I don't want a bunch of people to pay for this kind of discount buffet reading with the model itself being built on, well, we hope that most of you don't really read that much, or you don't read the expensive stuff, because otherwise, the model's not sustainable. But there's been a lot of other negative side effects, I think, of the kind of buffet style reading, similar to, back in my day when we had like 3 or 4 television channels, and then like the first time you experienced a satellite dish, or, you went to a friend's house with cable and all of a sudden you had like 500 channels and you stay up all night watching garbage, you just had no idea, like, why am I watching C-SPAN? Like, I don't know, like I'm watching the shopping network and I don't even know why. But, because I have all these channels. I see the same thing happening. I have the same discussion with readers all the time, about it. Just, the content is just so there, and there's just so much that it's like people can't tell me what they've read over the last month. Like, I read lots. Like, I don't remember any of it. Well, there was maybe one book I remember, but it's just like, while that's really great for the company that is commodifying that content and leveraging it to sell a bunch of other stuff, and I totally get it. It's, it's an awesome business strategy. I just don't think it's good for storytelling. I don't think it's good for readers and writers. And so out of all of this, and then, you can lump in, so the term information dealers, I think I'm the one that's coined this term. I don't know. I haven't seen it publicly anywhere else. I guess maybe I'll have someone reach out to me and say, stop using my term.
But right now you own that term.
right now I own it.
Yeah.
But information dealers, in the sense of, how we've had arms dealers, slave dealers, like drug dealers, just these, things, global issues. I am now, declaring that we're in this era of the information dealer. And these are, people that we know through their link, clickbait, click farms, spammy content, fake news, all these techniques and kind of digital marketing techniques to just get your attention, get you to click on something so that they're making money through AdSense or through whatever kind of platform they're using, and just monetizing ridiculous sensationalism and accessing, mountains of our personal information to do so, right? We're getting very specifically targeted everywhere we go online by people that are very cunning and very good at utilizing that emotional knee-jerk response on our part to sell us stuff, or to, force whatever desired behavior they want from us. And we're seeing this now moving into fiction and into storytelling and into book sales, because anywhere where you're selling story and there's ad content going on, that's one of the main levers that opens it up for people, and Amazon's been dealing with this as best they can, but we've dealt with the fake reviews, we've, dealt with the page stuffing, and all the abuse that's gone on in Kindle Unlimited. There are just too many people that are willing to find ways to abuse the system and pull these levers in order to make a lot of money quickly. And so that's kind of been the origin of pirate publishing, in the sense of, we need to be pirates that we're, fighting back against the empirical forces, the golden era of pirating, where our information high seas are being co-opted, and the information brokers that are making all this possible aren't malicious. They're just finding ways to make a lot of money on the digital frontier that's out there, and the information and all of our personal data that's floating around out there that we don't really understand what's being done with it. We don't know that it's as valuable as it is. And so all these large companies are utilizing that unfortunately, the way that they make money off of that is all these different levers that then can be abused by people that don't have all of the high moral or scruples that we would hold to, that become these sort of information dealers that are pulling the levers that the brokers are emphasizing. So out of that, I finally decided it was time to go public. Fiction Vortex, we've been in the background now for 4 or 5 years, just kind of experimenting, tweaking, playing around. Can we do this? When is the timing right? And over the last year, it just feels like it's been foaming to the surface, where it's in the social awareness and mindset much more, where, people are frustrated with the division that's coming out of all this, the trolling and the negativity, that's just so in our faces. It's just so blatant out there, whether it's, through us, our news sources, our social media interactions. It seemed like the timing was right to put it out there, to go public and see how many pirate authors we could recruit to the cause of, sort of let's take it on our shoulders as storytellers to save our industry. We don't want our stories to be, and our narratives and our data, to be used to divide people, to isolate people, to alienate people and enrage people. Enragement is engagement, this sort of, attitude of, let me just see how I can push buttons in order to get, views. Let's take that back, because fiction is all about empathy. Fiction is all about POV and expanding people's perspectives and views and crawling inside the minds and thoughts and, feelings of these characters that are in some ways very different from us, but in some ways obviously just very human like us, and going through these fantastical scenarios where we get to, escape into and see, well, how would we deal with, this or this? And those are the things that, as kids, we all have our, our world broadens to people outside of our small protected bubble by books. That's always the first place, where we've been exposed to different people and different thoughts and different ideas. And yet, if that goes away, and if we're only being targeted with content that just feeds into how I want to feel or what I already believe, and we're not exposed to different views or different people, this just is a spiraling global human problem. Mm-hmm. That we firmly believe that story has the ability to cure. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to get that story relevant and available and accessible again to the people who have either, stopped reading it, or have just, reading has grown tedious, because they're not sure what to read anymore, or where to, what to trust anymore, or where to find that next really valuable thing that kind of connects with them and, brings them alive with that taught me something new. That character is so real for me. So that type of experience again.
It can seem kind of limited when I was thinking specifically publishing with what are you reading? Where is this coming from? Do you know the author behind it? But I can see how you mentioned that it kind of affects all areas of your life, and it's not just limited to publishing, but your TV, your news, all that stuff. So a lot to think about. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering, do you think readers should be taking more of an interest in finding out where their content's coming from? And was this author known for doing scams in the past or something like that? How much do you think a reader should be paying attention to what they're reading and ingesting in these kind of subscription model reading platforms?
Honestly, I think readers want to know. Mm-hmm. I think we do. And I think that's been part of this sort of transformation of going from the sort of anonymous curmudgeon in their closet writing books, this sort of introverted author that just sat at a desk and wrote. It's kind of what we've been told, that's what, right? Writers just drink a lot and eventually kill themselves, but their books live on, right? That's kind of what this weird idea of like who a writer is. I mean, I grew up with like, this idea of like, I want to be a Hemingway on a sailboat, and I'll just drink a lot and I'll just be really bitter. Like, oh, people. It didn't work out for me that way.
Sadly.
Sadly. Well, and the gal that I married gets extremely seasick. So I was like, okay, this sailboat's out right away. That was a
no
major
boathouse for you.
Major bummer for me. But I think like anything else, we've seen the video media actually, right, go through this process of something that was really formal and really distant to YouTube, to where we were much more connected to the creator of the content. And we feel like we were being invited into their world. And we sort of rocked back and forth through a balance of like, well, how much professionality do I require? And how much intimacy do I want? And people find a balance, to where they're like, this is the experience I want. And I do think people are looking for that with their narrative storytelling. It's just not, we're yet to find that stability. I used Wattpad for years. I mean, I opened my Wattpad account probably 10 years ago, when they were first open. And it was this new, exciting, like, I can, chat with people that are reading my content and I can get direct feedback from them. But there was never an easy way to monetize that, so it was like, well, I love doing this over here, but at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how to make a living. And I feel like we've just sort of stayed in this space, and publishing has been, up until fairly recently, controlled, by traditional publishing companies that have a bulky system. They have a way of doing things, and they aren't too eager to change that in any kind of, quick manner. But then unfortunately, the companies that have moved in and taken advantage of that slow response have been big data companies, not storytelling companies at all. And so now the stories are more about the big data, which has made a very sort of creepy and scary. So now at this point as a reader, I'm like, I don't know how much I want to be known by the companies where the stories are coming from, because they're big data companies. And so I would love to connect with the author, and that's, but at the same time, I'm connecting with that author on Facebook or wherever. So now people are becoming more, sort of reticent though about, well, what do I share on Facebook? Like, I love connecting with my readers who are reading my books, but at the same time, I'm also super aware of whatever I share in Facebook or wherever I'm interacting with those readers might be doing, being used in lots of ways that I didn't intend that information to be used. And so we're just in this weird place of where I do think readers want to know the storyteller. I think they want to be involved. And yet we have to find a safe way to do it, which is another big part of what Fiction Vortex, what we've been playing around with, like how can we develop a platform that involves this direct connection to where a reader gets to say, I want input into the story. I think that, this is what I love about the story. I want this to happen next. I want this character, like, to where literally you're reading a story and the author could just drop something and say, at the end of chapter 8, one of these 3 characters is going to die. You tell me which one it can't be, and, the winning one will be preserved, but of the other 2, like, one of them is going to get the axe. And so readers are like, have this level of interactivity, which the technology is totally out there to do. We just haven't done it yet. And so that's the type of thing we're looking into and collecting data on, like, how do we want to be involved and how do we not want to be involved, and can we do it in a way that isn't creepy?
Yeah.
So where do you kind of see that digital, like, information, how do you see that kind of affecting publishing for the next 5 to 10 years?
I guess like a creepy data information situation.
Yeah, that like big data company that you were kind of talking about. Like, how do you see that affecting publishing and storytelling over the next few years?
It is the key influencer, and it will be, and it won't go away. I've been reading more and more articles talking about not only, Amazon, but Walmart, Target, like all the large retailers are getting into original content. Everybody wants original content. And if you're a platform, if you're a large retailer that already has tons of data, consumer data, then it gives you a huge advantage in kind of knowing what buttons to push in those people to get more sales and to make more money. It makes too much sense for companies to go away from that. What's going to happen, I hope, and this is where pirate publishing comes in and the call to all the pirate authors to come together. And my goal is to get 2,500 pirate authors that have signed the Pirate Author Code, the PAC. And I just opened up the email form like last week, and I think we've got 23 when I checked yesterday. So we'll see how quickly this grows. But a platform is going to have to come along, or we're going to have to build one that is an information broker, but that is willing to put the story ahead of the big data, that their goal is story and not, the narrative, and not commodifying that in order to leverage other sales. Because there's no way that we're going to get away from the importance of all of this information and data. And honestly, it is part of the solution, is that we have technology now that can, while you're reading a story, the technology can tell your behavioral data rather than just your consumer data. We can know by the way that a reader is interacting with a story if they're using a touchscreen. There's so many different points of input from a touchscreen that we can know if this reader is enjoying the story or bored, or, and by the stories that you read and how quickly you read them, or if you don't finish them, or how long they take you to get through. We no longer just have to rely on, oh, well, they bought these 5 stories, so we're going to recommend these stories. But what they don't know is that one of those was a gift for someone, and 2 of them I never finished. And so, but I'm getting out these other recommendations because it was only based on the consumer data. Once we're able to analyze the behavioral data, which again, the technology exists to do now, then we can start to say, this person has been reading, cozy romance or cozy mystery or, whatever. Instead of just recommending more of the same thing, we've identified that what they really love is a outsider redemption story, because this is the pattern that we're identifying in all of these stories that they're really engaging with. And so we can take now a thriller story, or we can take now a paranormal urban fantasy story that has the same thing, the same pattern, and we can recommend that, and we know they're going to like it. And we don't have to rely on reviews that can be gamed, ads that can be gamed, top 100 lists that can be gamed. All of the things that we're currently relying on to help readers discover what they want to read are all levers that can be taken advantage of by bad actors. So we're going to have to rely on the data itself to be able to help readers find what they want to read and remove any of the levers that we can no longer trust, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
That does make sense for sure.
Who knows what's going to happen as we reach the end of the year. So you mentioned earlier software that helps you write in your fiction Vortex stories, which is actually Storyshop University. Can you tell us a little bit about what actually Storyshop University is, and then the event that you have coming up in February?
Yeah. So we've built University to go along with our Storyshop platform. And so if you go to storyshop.university.io, I never actually type in the full.
We will have a link.
You'll find it.
Yeah. We'll put a link.
So that's our free kind of community site that goes along with Storyshop. So, we have a blog there. We have content going up pretty much daily. Some of it is craft related. Some of it is, related more to building your email list or, using other services and platforms that are out there to market to, we're going to have a post going up there from Kobo Writing Life. Talking about how to best utilize all the different great promotions and things that Kobo makes available, and writing inspiration, soundtrack music, and just stuff that we put up there. We have a forum there that's still very young, doesn't have a ton of engagement, but we're hoping to create a spot where people can go and in an environment that is hopefully remains free of bullying and pestering and trolling. So yeah, it's all the content's free. There's some really great stuff on there from a lot of really great authors that we've gotten to throw some of their content in. And then the summit, S3 Storyshop Summit, is attached to all of this, because again, the community is what's super important to us. We know as authors that we need each other. We need all these different platforms and the people that have gone before us and that have learned things, to share with us. So we're continuing the event that Sterling and Stone, Sean and Johnny and Dave started, the Smarter Artist Summit. We've changed the name to the Storyshop Summit, but we're going to be continuing that. It's going to be in Austin, February 2nd and 3rd, 2020. And, it'll remain very similar to how it's been for the last 4 years. And we're just looking forward to back up the community the last couple of years. And so going back and seeing a lot of the people that have been there. And plus now a lot of the new Storyshop and people that we've invited in. And we're sort of introducing the pirate publishing terminology and this kind of concept of the things that are on the seascape ahead of us, the turmoil and the trouble and the things that if we want to continue to succeed as authors, if we want to grow our author brand, like this is what's happening. People are pooling together, people are collaborating, people are teaming up in order to, create content faster, to be able to match it up with people that want more. I mean, this conference has been the sort of conference for collaborative efforts like, Anderlee's Catherian Gambit and LMBPN Publishing and Sean and Johnny and David's, collaborative world stuff and all the collaborative stuff that we've been learning more kind of in the shadows over here in Idaho, and pooling all those resources together, bringing in a bunch of, we're bringing in Jim and Brian from the Sell More Book Show. We're bringing in Jane Friedman from the Hot Sheet, bringing in a lot of great writers and editors and designers, to just a lot of givers, to add to the value there in that. And still, excited about getting more people there so people can that one is just storyshopsummit.com.
We'll also have a link.
Mm-hmm. And because we need to meet each other in person. I know as authors, a lot of us are introverts, but making those connections, meeting other pirate authors in person and, sharing with each other sort of what we've learned so that we can navigate the waters safely is necessary now more than ever. Because, if we've thought it's gone crazy over the last 10 years with the emergence of all of what's happened, I mean, Kobo Writing Life is like one of the founding senior platforms in the business, and you guys have been around for how long now? 8 years?
Yeah,
I wanted to say, is it 8 years?
I think it's, because I think it's 2012, right? So almost.
Yeah, so you guys are one of the old players, and it's only been 8 years. And so to see what the next 8 years brings, I think it's going to be twice as crazy as it's been over the last 8 years. So it's something that I think we need to kind of keep those personal bonds built so that, we kind of have each other to, to help guide us through the process.
Definitely.
So now that you've finished your pirate publishing book, what are you currently working on and what can readers expect from you next?
Well, we're working on the Storyshop platform because, we have lots of things in plan there that we hope to unveil there. And I'm, going to be doing some more speaking here and there wherever I can to kind of keep growing the pirate publishing. And again, I want to get to 2,500 sort of like signed on pirate authors to unleash the next phase, which will either be teaming up with someone who's building what we need, or it'll be kind of crowdfunding the money that we need to build what we need, but essentially to push the platform of our dreams into reality. So as writers and readers, we have that ability to, keep narrative relevant, restore it, keep growing it, directly working with each other. So yeah, I'll be doing that. And of course, in Austin, February 2nd and 3rd, chatting with a bunch of people there. And I mean, that's less than 2 months away now. So
yeah,
all the stuff leading up to that and all the secret things that I can't talk about, all that stuff.
So if someone's interested in becoming a pirate author, where can they sign up?
So head over to Storyshop University, and there is a page there, the Pirate Author Code. And that would that'd probably be the main one to link to in the show notes too. But yeah, if you look up Pirate Author Code, Storyshop, you should find it pretty easy. And there's a little explanation there. There's a link to the book there. There's a link to sort of the first blog post. Almost all the content in the book is on the blog. And if you sign up on the Pirate Author Code, you'll actually receive a free PDF copy of the book. And
awesome.
So, but if you would prefer an EPUB or Mobi, an ebook or a print book, you can head over to somewhere like Kobo and buy the ebook and enjoy it that way. Just whichever way they want to interact with it.
So yeah, if you're interested in coming to the summit.
And if any of you listening out there are interested in coming to S3 2020, make sure that you use the discount code S3 2020 KWL, and that will get you $250 off the ticket price. So instead of $650, it'll be $399, which I guess is actually $251 off.
That's great. We'll also have a link to the code in our website and in the episode description in case anyone is curious.
Sounds great.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's super fun. This is my excited face, if people
the brief
aware.
Smile, if they were wondering.
Yeah, I'm from Texas, so this is me excited and emotional.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. If you're interested in purchasing David's title, I Say Publish the Pirate Way, you can buy that on Kobo.com. If you're interested in attending Storyshop Summit 3, use promo code S32020KWL to get $250 off the ticket price. And if you're interested in growing your Kobo sales, visit KoboWritingLife.com. This episode was produced by Stephanie McGrath and Laura Granger. This episode was edited by Kelly Robotham. Music was provided by Tearjerker, and special thanks to David for being a guest on our episode.
If you're ready to start your self-publishing journey, sign up for free at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing.